What's up, you guys? This is Devin from CenturyFX Studios, and we're back with another video. Today, we're going to be talking about missing focus on your camera lens. Now, for those of you who don't know, I do a variety of photography, and I know that you can miss focus in many different ways. You can miss focus in the field, at a wedding, you can miss focus at a sports event, you can miss focus in any facet of photography. It's so easy to miss focus. Now, unless you're out in the landscape world of photography and you have your camera on a tripod and focus is not that big of a deal, uh, now, not to, because I know there's some camera purists out there or some photography guys are like, don't say focus is not a big deal. Focus is crucial. Yeah, I know, I understand that. But when it comes to landscape photography, you're at larger aperture numbers, f8, f11, f9, things of that nature. So those larger aperture numbers give you a broader depth of field. You have so much area that you don't have to worry about being in focus because, there's so much that's going to be in focus anyway. But when it comes to being in the studio or doing portraits or taking pictures of people, usually you're at more wide open apertures 2.8, 3.5, 5.6, 4.0. You're at sometimes even 1.8, 2.0. So 2.2, things of that nature. Whereas if you miss the focus, you missed it. It's painfully obvious with a big sensor that if you miss focus, it's terribly out of focus and there's nothing you can do to get it back. Whereas if you're a cell phone user or a compact camera user or somebody with a smaller sensor device like a cell phone or compact camera, if you miss focus, it's not the end of the world because usually those sensors don't actually separate the backdrop and make it blurry as much as a bigger sensor camera would. If you miss focus with a daggone medium format camera, you're in a world of trouble. Or a full frame camera, you're in a world of trouble. Micro Four Thirds, you don't have it that bad, but with APS-C size sensors, you're still in a world of trouble if you miss focus, especially with a wide open lens. Now, in this case, we have the 18 to 55 millimeter. This is the kit lens from Canon, and I was actually using the 50 millimeter 1.4, the widely used 1.4 that Canon hasn't updated yet. I compared these two lenses. I was actually filming a video comparing these two lenses. Now, in the studio, I usually shoot with one focus point. This is a studio style shot. So this is not like I'm at an event or at a sports game where if I miss focus, I can't tell them to redo it again. I can get a candid shot redone sometimes, but not like a kiss from a wedding or anything in a sports event or anything like that that requires you to just be a journalist to capture what you see. With that being said, in the studio environment, I had a model here that I was shooting, and I was comparing these two lenses, so I shot them side by side. Essentially, I just took off one lens, snapped, put the other one on there. I was shooting manually, and I didn't worry about anything with the settings. It was at 3.5, or excuse me, it was at 5.6, it was at 100th of a second, and it was ISO 100. Granted, the 1855 millimeter is a zoom lens, and the 50 millimeter prime is not a zoom lens. I tried to match the focal distances as much as possible. So now, if you look very closely at the model here, you might be like, "Oh, these look like pretty decent images. They're well lit. They are not too flat. I mean, the light might be straight on to a certain extent, but it's a beauty dish. It has this nice wrapping sort of quality to it. It's not as harsh as a flash would be. That doesn't have a modifier on it. But if I look, the first thing I want to do as a portrait photographer is look at the eyes and make sure the eyes are in focus. And right when I put it in my computer, when I go to 1:1, I notice there's a painful difference. Now, at first, you want to say, oh, it's just a kit lens. It's just a kit lens. It can't do, you know, things as good as the 50 millimeter 1.4, which is a more expensive lens. It should be able to be made for portraits. It should be able to get something extremely sharp in comparison. But for my taste, I've been doing photography for too long. I know that the kit lens can do better than this. I know that the kit lens can do better than this. And I'm like, did I miss focus on this? I did miss focus on this. It didn't take me long to figure it out. So I start scaling the image down, until I saw her necklace. And I was like, this necklace looks sharper on the kit lens side than it does on the 50 millimeter 1.4 side. And it's not like we shot it at different apertures. If it was different apertures, I'd be like, oh, wait, it's a different aperture. This aperture is 2.8 or 1.8. It falls off faster. No, we shot these at the exact same aperture. So the amount of depth of field should be the exact same on both cameras or both lenses for that matter. So I came to the conclusion that I misfocused because if I scroll over here to her hair, I noticed that her hair is distinctly sharper on the kit lens side than it is on the 50 millimeter side. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I know what I did. I must have either stepped forward or the model might have moved a little bit, might have budged a little bit, but I think it's more on me moving the camera a little bit more or just moving a little smidge out of the focus that I locked into. Now, this is a big problem. This is a big problem for a lot of DSLR shooters and a lot of big frame shooters, people with bigger sensors on their cameras. Because the thing about those cameras is they are so sensitive. They are so extremely sensitive to what you focus on and how you focus on it. How do you have your camera? Are you holding your camera? Are you shaking your camera when you lock focus? You know, there's so many different focus modes on these newer cameras that you have to get used to the fact that if you lock focus, you lock focus. And especially if it's an older camera, if you don't have it on the right focus mode, it just won't recalibrate that focus for you. So you have to be extremely, extraordinarily careful when you're focusing a camera because if you lock focus, that's it. You don't have anywhere to move. You can't move. Your model can't move. And if you can't snap that picture within that frame of time and that frame of distance, for lack of a better word or phrase, if you can't maintain that focus, then you miss that shot. So it doesn't matter if you're using a full frame camera with a 1.8 aperture. If you miss that shot, you just screwed it up. And you should, as a photographer or as a pro photographer, not want to continue using the images that you had slightly out of focus. Because if you put this much money into your camera, you want to get the best out of your camera and the best out of your experience using it. And everybody makes mistakes. This happens to every photographer, especially with a big full frame sensor or a bigger frame sensor and a shallow depth of field lens with a wide open aperture. It never ceases to fail me. I always end up missing focus, especially if I'm in the studio or something like that. So be very, very careful with how you lock focus, whether you're moving the camera, and things of that nature. With all that being said, I'm Devin with CenturyFX Studios, and this is just a quick tip.